Barron Trump had every advantage. Jasmine Crockett had nothing to lose. When Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett finally spoke, the fallout was immediate, and no one saw it coming. It happened on a quiet Wednesday evening, just as Americans were settling into dinner and the usual cable chatter. The segment was supposed to be routine, a discussion about political dynasties and their grip on American democracy. Crockett, seated across from two commentators on America Now, didn't come to start a fire. Dressed sharply in a deep teal suit. Her demeanor calm and deliberate, she answered questions with ease, until the host made a passing remark, "Isn't it a bit unfair to criticize Barron Trump? He's just a kid, after all." Jasmine leaned in, just slightly. Her voice remained composed, but her words sliced through the air. "Barron Trump has lived a life of unimaginable privilege," she said. "At some point, we need to stop pretending. He's just a kid and recognize what that kind of insulation creates. He's acting like a spoiled child, because that's how he was raised." The studio fell silent. Even the camera operator flinched. One commentator tried to cut her off. Jasmine didn't budge. "Kids across this country are paying rent, raising siblings, and showing up every day with responsibilities no teenager should bear. Meanwhile, we're babying a 6 feet 7 inches teenager who throws tantrums anytime someone holds him accountable. No yelling. No theatrics. Just the raw weight of reality." Within minutes, a clip of her comments exploded online. By the time she left the studio, it had already been viewed over 300,000 times. By midnight, 2 million of the backlash came fast and furious. Conservative pundits called her cruel. "An attack on a child," declared the Daily Flash. "Jasmine Crockett just humiliated herself," tweeted Senator Hugh Ridgman. "Disgraceful." But Crockett stayed quiet, scrolling through the chaos from the passenger seat of her car. Her aide, Kiona, glanced over. "You knew they were gonna come for you." Jasmine didn't even blink. "Let them," she said. "Somebody had to say it." By morning, Jasmine's words were on every screen in America. News anchors debated her tone. Podcasts raced to re-edit episodes. Morning shows from Boise to Boston argued whether she was brave or brutal. Then, something unexpected happened. Barron Trump responded to at 10 a.m., a shaky Instagram story appeared. Barron, red-faced, pacing in what looked like a guest room, pointed at the camera. His voice cracked. "She's a nobody. A literal nobody. You don't get to talk about me like that, like I'm some poor kid with nothing. You're not better than me." Then a crash off screen. The video cutout.it was deleted within the hour, but not before it spread like wildfire. For many, the clip did the opposite of what it intended. Jasmine hadn't attacked a child. She'd called out privilege, and Barron had just put it on full display at BY Noon. The narrative was splitting. Right-wing outlets called her a bully. But more moderate voices began asking deeper questions. Why are we shielding the wealthy from accountability simply because of their last names? Jasmine's office received over 1,000 emails that day. Yes, there were threats. But also hundreds of thank yous. A high school teacher from Mesa wrote, "My students are held to higher standards than that boy. You said what needed to be said." A nurse from Bakersfield, "I don't follow politics, but I watched the clip twice. You didn't lie. Thank you for being real." Then came TikTok. Gen Z creators stitched her clip with messages of solidarity. One 22-year-old said, "She's not wrong. We all know someone like him, never had to work, never had consequences. But if you call it out, you're the problem?" Nah. I'm with her. From Tulsa to Oakland, from Billings to Baton Rouge, people began to reflect and relate. Some even reenacted the segment, calling it the Truth Hour. This wasn't just outrage anymore. It was awakening. Inside Jasmine Crockett's Dallas district office, she sat quietly, watching the ripple grow into a wave. She hadn't expected it. She hadn't planned it, but she'd spoken her truth, and America, for the first time in a long while, was listening. Kiona stared at her laptop as the numbers kept climbing: views, likes, subscribers, donations. "I think it's working," she whispered. Jasmine didn't look up from her phone. Working, or backfiring? Kiona shook her head. People don't want fake anymore. You didn't give them a soundbite. You gave them something to talk about at lunch. But Jasmine could feel it, an invisible weight hanging in the air. The backlash wasn't over. There would be follow-up interviews, hit pieces, angry think pieces. Trump loyalists would come harder, and yet, this didn't feel like the usual. Outrage cycle of people weren't just watching, they were listening, and somewhere, someone was about to make it worse. At 5:12 p.m. on Thursday, a new video hit the internet, this time a longer, cleaner version of Barron Trump's outburst. Unlike the shaky clip from the day before, this one had decent lighting, a crisp mic, and a disturbing clarity. It wasn't a slip, it was a statement that he was pacing again, this time in a sleek, well-lit room with gold-trimmed books behind him. Barefoot, hoodie on, hair messy like he hadn't slept. The energy was darker. Sharper. Performed. You think I'm spoiled? He snapped, staring straight into the lens. You think I don't know what people say about me? I've dealt with this crap since I was 10. Then came the target, and you, he scoffed. You get on national TV and call me some rich brat with no brain? His breathing grew heavier, his voice bitter. You want to talk about struggle? Please. People like you love acting like you're so oppressed. You got elected, didn't you? Now you think you're better than me? He paused. Then delivered the line that would detonate the conversation. You'll never be anything more than noise. Just background noise. He kicked a chair. The video cut out, and with it, so did any illusion of innocence. The clip was deleted in under 2 hours, but not before it had been downloaded, clipped, remixed, and dissected across every platform. This time, no one could spin it. Not even his defenders. You'll never be anything more than noise. The phrase hit differently. Coded, cutting, unmistakable. The X, formerly Twitter, lit up. Jasmine's original clip was now the backbone of every viral post. TikTok creators began using Barron's own words to prove her right, acting like a spoiled kid. One creator posted, "Nah, that's textbook spoiled adult behavior." Cable shows picked it up. Late-night hosts followed suit. He's 18 now, one joked. You don't get to call him a child every time he throws a tantrum and blames the world for noticing. Attempts to paint the video as a vulnerable moment fell flat. People were tired of the excuses. By Friday morning, hashtags like #SheWasRight and #BarronMeltdown trended nationwide. Still, Jasmine said nothing. No tweet. No comment. No press release, and that silence? It roared. She let the video speak for itself, and it did. Over. And over. And over again. Then something unexpected happened. Support. Her original clip was being reused, not in outrage, but in admiration. One viral video posted by a grassroots political group in Ohio hit over 4 million views in 2 days. It showed Jasmine delivering her line intercut with Barron's rant. The final message on screen: accountability isn't cruel. It's necessary. Her campaign site saw an $80,000 spike in small donations within 48 hours. Still, Jasmine stayed silent. Her team urged her to let the moment ride, let people argue. Let them take sides, but behind closed doors, Jasmine wasn't thinking about strategy. She was thinking about the shift. Because this wasn't about her anymore, or even Barron. This was about something deeper. A cultural snapback. A long overdue conversation. By Saturday morning, it was no longer just trending, it was transforming barbershops in Cincinnati, cafes in Tucson, pickup lines outside elementary schools in Bakersfield. Group chats that hadn't touched politics in years were suddenly debating privilege, power, and who gets to speak the truth, and it wasn't just that people were talking about Jasmine Crockett. It was how they were talking about her. She didn't sugarcoat it. She just said what we all think. She told the truth. The groundswell came from the quiet corners: single moms, union workers, college students, Public school teachers in Salem, Oregon, a civics teacher named Roberta Lane recorded a video in her car before heading into the grocery store. I have kids who've lost parents, who babysit siblings, who come to school hungry, and they still show up. You don't get to be a billionaire's kid, call people nobodies, and be shielded from criticism. Congresswoman Crockett spoke the truth. That's all it was. Her video went viral. So did dozens more mechanics, nurses, waitresses, factory workers, people who had seen entitlement up close and were tired of being told to stay quiet about it. One mechanic in Iowa, oil-stained hands and tired eyes, looked into his phone camera and said, "I was raised that when you act entitled, you get corrected. I don't care who your dad is." Jasmine was right. And just like that, the backlash began eating itself. Even commentators who had blasted Jasmine started hedging. She might have been harsh, one conservative podcaster admitted. But she had a point. If Hunter Biden had posted a video like that, we'd be calling him a privileged clown. Moderate Republicans started shifting tone. Some even praised her. 3 days in, Jasmine hadn't spoken a word, but her silence was winning. Cable news couldn't stop playing the loop of her quote next to Barron's rant. Ratings soared. Pundits bickered, but the people? They weren't waiting for permission. They were already having the conversation without them, and by Sunday night, the tipping point hit, live, unfiltered, on a local public access show in Madison, Wisconsin. One of them, a woman with a soft southern drawl, leaned into her webcam, eyes steady. "I raised 4 boys," she said. "And I told every one of them, your actions matter more than your last name. If Barron Trump wants to be treated like an adult, then he needs to act like one." Jasmine Crockett didn't attack him, she held up a mirror. He just didn't like what he saw. That clip didn't just go viral. It took off, first on Reddit, then Twitter, then everywhere. In Jasmine's home office in Dallas, Kiona sat cross-legged with her laptop balanced on one knee, refreshing the analytics dashboard. Engagement's up. Donations are still climbing. And she paused, squinting at the screen. Approval numbers, they're shifting. Jasmine looked up slowly, tired but focused, not from lack of sleep, but from the emotional weight of what had unraveled. "Over the past few days, you're not losing ground anymore," Kiona added. "You're gaining." But Jasmine didn't smile. She'd seen too many viral moments turn toxic. Too many times when someone spoke the truth and paid the price. "You think it'll last?" she asked. Kiona didn't hesitate. "I think for once, people are finally listening." And they were. Because this wasn't about offense anymore. It was about honesty, but when public opinion shifts this fast, someone always tries to pull it back. Later that day, Jasmine sat at the long oak table in her Dallas campaign office. Blinds half closed, sunlight streaked across the floor. 3 staffers hunched over glowing screens, scrolling, typing, monitoring. The air buzzed, part adrenaline, part tension, part disbelief. Kiona was at the whiteboard, mapping out talking points they might not need anymore. "We still need to prep for local interviews next week," she said, scribbling in red marker. "You're going to get hit with more personal questions. About the video. About him." Jasmine didn't respond right away. She was scrolling through messages. Most were kind. Some, not. A long text thread from her cousin in Arkansas. A quiet thank you from her old high school English teacher in DeSoto. And one short message from an unknown number. "You were right. Don't back down." She handed the phone to Deshaun, her calm, soft-spoken communications director. He read the message, then looked at her. "You thinking of saying something?" "I'm thinking about whether I need to," Jasmine replied. Kiona looked up from the board. "People are still talking either way. And honestly, the right's starting to eat itself. But if you stay silent too long, they'll say you're scared." Jasmine looked around the room. "You know what's wild?" she said. "I've been in tougher rooms than that studio. Courtrooms. Town halls. House floor debates. But that 2-minute clip, that's what set the country on fire." Deshaun nodded. It wasn't just what you said. It was how you said it. No flinching. No grandstanding. Just truth. Calm. Measured. No buzzwords, Kiona added. And then Barron melted down and handed you the rest. A flicker of a smile touched Jasmine's lips, but it faded quickly. They're going to drag this out for weeks, she said. And you know who's going to pay for it? Not me. Not him. Regular folks. That teacher in Oregon. That mechanic. In Iowa. The ones already hanging on by a thread. She paused, voice heavy. This can't just be about him anymore. Kiona sat down slowly. Then make it bigger. Pivot. Talk about what this really is, privilege, entitlement, the double standard. Deshawn nodded. Turn it into something useful. Something real. I'm not turning this into a campaign slogan, Jasmine said firmly. You're not, Kiona replied. You're turning it into a conversation they don't want us to have. The room fell quiet. Jasmine leaned back, thinking. Not about headlines or Twitter threads, but about a boy from her district who came to a town hall last year with his mom. He told her he was afraid to apply to college. Nobody like me ever makes it through. Said he worked 2 jobs while his classmates partied downtown. She had squeezed his shoulder and told him, it's okay to struggle. Just don't let the struggle quiet you. That memory came flooding back. She stood up. I'll do a sit down. She said. Not cable. Not filtered. Just me, a chair, and a straight camera. We'll post it raw. No sound bites. Let the people hear me. Deshawn looked up, surprised. You sure? Let them hear my voice. Not the clips. Not the commentary. Mine. Kiona was already typing. What are you going to say? Jasmine paused in the doorway. That this isn't just about one privileged boy. It's about what happens when power raises children who never hear a no, and the rest of us pay the price for their tantrums. She walked out. Her heels echoed down the hallway. Outside, volunteers were setting up signs for a local event. The office buzzed with movement, but Jasmine didn't notice. Her mind was already on the camera. The message. And the millions of people still watching, waiting to see if she'd cave. She wasn't going to, but 1,300 miles away, someone else was preparing to flip the story again. Inside a gated estate outside Palm Beach, Barron Trump sat alone in a cavernous media room. Silence. Marble floors. Walnut-paneled walls lined with trophies, footballs, and pristine sneakers he didn't wear. His phone buzzed again. Another meme, another clip, another jab. Noise. Background noise. Spoiled boy can't take criticism. For a day. He tried to play it cool. His PR fixer, mid-30s, always calling him young king, told him to write it out, let it blow over. But it didn't. Barron couldn't stop watching the clips. The comparisons. Jasmine Crockett's words, looping, spreading, sticking. Every video made him look the same, arrogant. Sheltered. Fragile. Even his father's most loyal defenders had started sounding rehearsed. Hollow. He snapped. The remote flew across the room, hit the couch, and landed with a soft thud. Outside the door, he heard staffers whispering, he's not handling this right. We can't keep putting him in front of a camera. He walked to the doorway. Paused in the shadows. The whispers stopped. He turned around, slammed the door behind him. Inside that house, no one challenged him. That had always been the deal. Privacy. Protection. Spin control. But this time was different. This wasn't politics anymore. This was personal, and no version of the story could make him the victim now. Barron pulled out his phone and opened a private group chat with a few old friends from school. He typed something. Deleted it. Typed again, I'm tired of being talked about like I don't get it. Like I'm clueless. One friend responded with a single, neutral thumbs up. Another sent a meme, Jasmine Crockett's face next to the words, she cooked. Barron stared at it. Too long. From outside his door came a soft knock. His mother's voice followed, gentle but concerned. Barron? I made food. Come eat something, please. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten all day. I said I'm not hungry. Her footsteps faded down the hallway. Barron slumped back into the couch and opened Instagram again. He searched Jasmine Crockett. Her latest post had over 200,000 likes. A simple photo, her in a navy suit, standing firm in front of the Capitol. The caption read, "Accountability doesn't care who your father is." The comments were flooded with fire emojis, clapping hands, praise. But one stood out. A user from Detroit had written, "When you've never been told no, the truth sounds like an attack." Barron read it again. And again. He didn't say anything aloud, but something in his chest tightened. For just a flicker of a moment, he wondered if Jasmine was right. If the world he'd grown up in had made him exactly what she described, but pride doesn't leave room for reflection. Not in his world. So he locked the screen and shoved the phone under a couch cushion, out of sight, out of reach. Outside the mansion gates, cameras still waited. Reporters camped out, ready for another meltdown, another soundbite. But this time, Barron stayed quiet. He wasn't regrouping. He wasn't plotting. He was just stewing, because when you've lived your whole life in a bubble, criticism doesn't feel like feedback. It feels like betrayal, but the world wasn't waiting for him to grow up. It had already moved on. The following Wednesday, Jasmine Crockett sat in a modest community center in Shreveport, Louisiana. No lights. No reporters. No stage. Just her, a folding chair, and a single camera on a tripod. She had chosen the space deliberately. No polish. No filters. Scuffed linoleum floors. Peeling paint. A handwritten poster on the wall, "Speak plain. Speak true." Kiona set the frame, adjusted the focus, and hit record. Jasmine looked into the lens. No makeup artist. No teleprompter. Just a legal pad on her lap, and a deep, steady calm in her eyes. "You've heard the clip," she began quietly. "Some of you saw it live. Some of you saw what happened after." A pause. "I've been told I went too far. That I was cruel. That I should apologize." Another pause. "I'm not going to." The silence that followed was intentional. What I said wasn't about one boy. It wasn't even just about Barron Trump. It was about a system that raises kids in power without limits, and then expects the rest of us to stay silent when they lash out. She leaned forward, voice still calm. "When I was in high school, my best friend's brother got suspended for challenging a teacher. He didn't yell. He didn't swear. He just disagreed, with respect. And he got sent home for a week. When he came back, you know what he said? He said, 'I guess some of us aren't allowed to talk back.'" She shook her head. "This isn't about politics. It's about patterns. Some people are handed the world and taught that no one's allowed to question them. Others are taught to apologize just for existing. A breath, and when someone finally says that's not okay, they call it an attack." She let the words sit. Then added, without flinching, "Was I blunt? Yes. I meant to be. I've had to fight for every inch of ground I've walked on. I know what it feels like to be dismissed, talked down to, passed over. And I know what it looks like when someone's never had to earn a thing." Another breath. This moment? It wasn't supposed to matter. It was 2 minutes on a panel. But it sparked something real. Not just about me, but about fairness. About entitlement. About what we let slide. She looked directly into the lens. "I'm not going to apologize for saying out loud what most people only whisper. I won't pretend the emperor has clothes when he doesn't, because when we start biting our tongues to protect the powerful, we lose something we can't get back, and truth." The camera hummed in the background. "I want young people to hear this, especially the ones who've been told to stay quiet. Keep their heads down, be grateful. You don't have to accept disrespect from people who've never known struggle. Your voice matters." She let that last line breathe. "That's it," she said, and stood up. Kiona stepped from behind the camera. "That's going to land," she whispered. Jasmine rolled her shoulders, glanced around the quiet room. "Let it land where it needs to." That night, the video dropped with no fanfare. No flashy edit. No hashtags. No political framing, just a single line on her official page: "This is for the people who've been told to stay quiet." By morning, it had 5 million views, but what mattered more was in the comments that a woman in Lubbock, this reminded me why I voted for you. A college student in Boise, "I watched this in tears. I've been silent my whole life around people like him. Thank you." A pastor in San Diego, "Truth isn't always polite. Sometimes it needs to be said plain." It wasn't Jasmine's most viral moment, but it was her most human, and for thousands of people who'd spent years feeling unseen, unheard, pushed aside, this wasn't just a political story anymore. It was personal, and with momentum finally on her side, Jasmine's next move could change everything. Just days earlier, many media outlets had danced around the controversy. Now, they were framing Jasmine Crockett's comments through a very different lens. Pundits who had once called her reckless were suddenly praising her for saying what others were too afraid to say. Even Sunday shows, known for skirting uncomfortable topics like class, began leading with tougher questions. Are we too quick to shield certain individuals from accountability simply because of who they are? One pivotal moment came on Face the Public, a nationally syndicated roundtable out of St. Paul. During a segment on civility in politics, host Darren Riggs surprised his guests by playing Jasmine's full quote. Then he held up a printed transcript of Barron's video. "This wasn't a smear," he said. "This was a reflection of power dynamics. And frankly, she handled it with more restraint than most would have." That comment alone reignited debate, but this time, Jasmine wasn't isolated. She'd become more than a viral headline. She had quietly become a symbol, not just of frustration with privilege, but of the silence that often surrounds it. Campaigns across the country began echoing her words. In rural Missouri, a school board candidate cited Jasmine in a speech on equity and school discipline. In Sacramento, a city councilwoman played the clip during a forum on bias in policing. In Birmingham, a young state representative running for re-election shared Jasmine's sit-down video with the caption, "When we stop being scared to name it, we can start changing it." But the most unexpected twist came from a voice on the other side. Annabeth Cole, a well-known conservative columnist, published an op-ed in the Arizona Star titled, "What if Jasmine Crockett was right? I don't agree with everything she said," Annabeth wrote. "But I can't deny the reaction to her words revealed something uncomfortable. We have different rules for the powerful, especially when they're young, rich, and white." Crockett touched a nerve because she named what most pretend isn't there. It was the kind of piece that made even longtime skeptics pause. As for Jasmine, she stayed grounded. She kept showing up to town halls, attending community meetings, shaking hands in Amarillo, Odessa, and Wichita Falls. She met with teachers, cashiers, school principals, night shift nurses. In every city, someone pulled her aside to whisper, "Thank you for not backing down." And slowly, the media frenzy faded into something steadier. Respect. It wasn't just that she stood firm. It was how she did it. No yelling. No spectacle. Just truth, plain and steady. Then came the ad. Her team hadn't planned on releasing one, but the groundswell was too real to ignore. So they put together something. It opened with Jasmine's quote, "No music, no filters, just her voice." Then quick shots, workers in hard hats, nurses clocking out at dawn, kids stepping off school buses, then Barron's viral moment. His voice, "People like you love acting like you're so oppressed." The ad ended with Jasmine's now iconic line, "Accountability doesn't care who your father is." Below it, white text read, "Jasmine Crockett, not scared of the truth." It aired in just 5 local markets, but it went viral within hours. People didn't just share it, they made their own versions. Parents stitched in their kids' stories. Teachers added footage from underfunded classrooms. Activists tied it to food insecurity, housing inequality, medical debt. Suddenly, the story wasn't about one viral moment anymore. It had become a Mirror, for a country exhausted by the double standards that excuse entitlement and punish honesty, and Jasmine? She hadn't flinched once back in Dallas. Kiona stared at the analytics dashboard and finally exhaled. Approval's up 9 points, she said quietly. That's real. Not noise. Deshawn cracked a smile. So what now, Jasmine? Standing by the window, Jasmine stared out at the nearly empty parking lot. We get ready, she said. Because next time, they won't come for my words. They'll come for my record. You learn who you're allowed to correct. You learn that your tone will be judged more harshly than someone else's actions. The room was completely silent, not out of discomfort, but because every word was landing exactly where it needed to. I didn't come here to be liked, Jasmine said. I came here to be honest. And to remind folks, courage isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just refusing to fold when the pressure hits. She stepped back from the mic. For a second, just a breath, no one moved, then the applause came. Slow at first. Then steady. Then full. Not performative. Not for cameras. Just real. Afterward, a retired bus driver approached her. I remember when your mama used to ride my route, he said. She had that cleaning cart with her. You got her fire. Jasmine smiled. She still keeps her shoes by the door. He chuckled. Good. The world needs more of that. She left the Union Hall lighter than when she'd entered. Not because the headlines had shifted, but because she had said what mattered, in the place that mattered most. But this story, it wasn't just hers anymore. And that came with a different kind of weight. Sunday morning was quiet and gray. Jasmine sat alone at her kitchen table in Dallas. Her coffee had gone cold. No meetings. No interviews. No press calls. Just her, and a stack of letters. Kiona had dropped them off in a big canvas tote from the district office. A sticky note on top read, real ones. One was from a grandmother in Wichita Falls, who raised her grandson alone and said Jasmine reminded her of her younger self. Another was from a 16-year-old girl in Bakersfield. I didn't think people in power told the truth out loud. Thank you. One letter, handwritten in careful cursive from a correctional officer in Ohio, simply read, you didn't insult that boy. You held up a mirror. Some people don't like what they see. Jasmine folded that one and slid it into the back of her notebook. Then she opened her laptop. Not to draft a statement. Not for strategy. Just to say something. For the people who had quietly carried her through the storm, she began typing slowly. Sometimes telling the truth out loud makes people uncomfortable. But discomfort isn't the enemy. Dishonesty is. We're living in a time where silence is confused with grace, and boldness is labeled disrespect. But I didn't run for office to whisper when shouting became necessary. I ran because I know what it means to be overlooked, talked over, and underestimated. And I ran for the people who carry those same bruises, every day, and still show up. She hit post, and closed the laptop. No hashtags. No promo. Just her, and that's why at HIT at BY Noon, it was being reposted by teachers, veterans, student groups, single parents, and small business owners across the country, some in states she hadn't stepped foot in for years, because Jasmine understood something deeper, something people were starting to feel again. Truth isn't always pretty. It's rarely smooth. But it has weight, and when someone carries it, openly, unapologetically, others feel less alone. Later that evening, at a small community event on the south side of Dallas, a man stopped her by her car. He looked about 40. Wore a heavy denim jacket. Boots still dusty from the job site. I didn't like what you said at first, he admitted. Thought maybe it was too much. But then I saw how they came at you. And I realized, if the truth makes people that mad, it's probably because it hit somewhere deep. Jasmine nodded. That's usually where it hurts the most. He offered her his hand. Keep speaking plain. Some of us need it. She shook his hand, firm and steady. Some of us do too. Back in the car, Kiona glanced over. You tired yet? Jasmine gave a soft smile. No. I'm ready. Because now, it wasn't about a boy raised in gold-plated silence. It wasn't about a viral quote or a single panel clip. It was about something bigger, a reminder that truth, spoken clearly, without polish or permission, is still one of the most dangerous and powerful tools we have, and the moral was simple: a silence might protect comfort, but it never protects justice. So, if this story meant something to you, if it reminded you of your own truth, don't let it stop here. Like, share, speak boldly, especially when it's easier not to.